Kimmie is the prime example of you can't want better for somebody than they want for themselves. Y'all ready to talk about this interview? Let's joust.
Come on, Blaze.
It's the beef for me.
Wow, 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 for your guy, for your B-O-Y. Drop it for your guy, for your B-O-Y. Do it for your guy, for your B-O-Y. Come on, baby, we are.
What's up, y'all? It's your girl Voodoo Doll back with another joust, and we about to joust Kimmie and Maurice Scott. And I know you're looking at Kimmie's face, and she has the face of defeat. But what I've learned throughout watching this interview that she did on Fox Soul was that Kimmie is not a victim. She is a willing participant in her own victimhood. So let's get started, girl. So now Kimmie and Maurice, after facing a whole bunch of backlash on social media about his comments about him still sleeping with his wife while she was going through chemo and radiation, after receiving a whole bunch of backlash, they decided to do this interview with Funky Dineva and Fox Soul with Claudia Jordan and I forget the Al Reynolds. I think that's his name. So they do this video or this interview, and they're doing this interview to kind of like clear up the issue, right? Because everybody ran down to social media to basically say how disgusted they were of Maurice. How could you require or even want to sleep with your partner, with your wife, after she's going through the chemo and radiation? People shared their stories about the things that happened to them and how bad chemo and radiation is, and didn't know how she could even fake through it. You know, his terms, not ours, or their terms, not ours. And everybody was like freaking out. First of all, I just want to do one thing. I want to share with you what kind of cancer it was that Kimmie was fighting through, and then also kind of what happens with chemo and radiation. So just for a little context of what Kimmie was actually suffering through. She was suffering through breast cancer, which is very common in Black women. We already know that. But the type of breast cancer she was suffering through was a very unique one, right? It's this new breast cancer called triple negative breast cancer, and is the most deadliest cancer that a woman can get in the community today. Now, I want to read you a little bit of this article from Medical News Today, and we're going to get into what she could have possibly been going through. So the article says, Black women are more likely than white women to develop breast cancer with certain genetic mutations that causes the cancer to grow quickly. According to ACS, Black women are twice as likely to get a diagnosis of triple negative breast cancer, which is aggressive and challenging to treat. They are also 30% more likely to die from this type of cancer due to low rates of treatment and including both chemotherapy and surgery. In addition, Black women are nearly twice as likely as white women to get a diagnosis of inflammatory breast cancer, which is also aggressive, although rare. Only 30% of Black women with this type of cancer survive for at least 5 years after diagnosis, compared with 43% of white women. Let me start by saying this. There's a reason Black women are more likely to be diagnosed with breast cancer than white women. And we can go down that diatribe, but I believe it begins with all those shots and all that stuff we give our kids when they're born and when they're young. We all do that mostly through Planned Parenthood. And we do know there's a disparaging method into which white kids are treated versus Black kids. Let's just start there. Number two, everything we go is through Planned Parenthood. And that within itself is just unaliving us by an alarming rate. But that's a whole other story. The point I'm making is Kimmie was going through triple negative breast cancer, which is the most aggressive breast cancer on the market, period. I mean, it's to the point where I have a cousin who just beat triple negative breast cancer. So I kind of know what they go through. And the fact that Maurice would hear that his wife is telling him that while she was going through chemo and radiation, which chemo and radiation literally burns the inside of your body from the inside out. I don't know if you guys know that, what chemo and radiation does. Chemo and radiation burns you from the inside out. Really, literally. And with that going on, I could not imagine rolling over for my husband to please him. Well, Maurice, after hearing that his wife saying, hey, look, babe, you know, when we were having sex throughout this whole ordeal, I was faking it. I put my health and my safety aside for you. Now, there's one thing I want to point out. I don't know if y'all recognize this, but you can see it on even the reunion from last year, or sometimes when Kimmie wears low-cut shirts. She has a mark or like a little scar or something like that from where I guess they were going in either for the chemo or for the doggone biopsy. I'm not sure. But nevertheless, I'm saying all that to say, instead of him being a caring and loving husband and saying, oh my God, babe, I'm so sorry you suffered through that. I never want you to do that again. I want you to take care of yourself. I'll be okay. I'm so sorry. No, he didn't say none of that. He said she was a trooper for doing so, and that he admires her for putting herself aside to please him, because he needs to have sex literally every single day. And it was just disgusting. So everybody went to windmilling for Kimmie. And to no avail, because Kimmie went to windmilling for her husband. So what I want to do is get into this interview and play a very, very small portion of this interview to show y'all his response to the people going down to social media windmilling for his wife, basically saying you're a piece of shit, basically. We're gonna get into a little bit of this interview so you can see how his mindset and how he feels about his own wife, basically, and then I'll come back with a little more commentary.
Are you that much of a sexual person to where, despite what she's going through right now, you still feel like there's a happy medium in terms of her pleasuring you?
This is what I'll say, because this is very difficult, right? There's a difference between wants and needs, all right? And I'm a person who actually needs sex, not a person who wants sex. Now, at times I want it, but I actually need it. So life throws us curveballs like what we're going through right now. And what Kimmie is doing is admirable as a spouse. To roll over and suffer through it, I was hoping it wouldn't be a suffering, a sufferable moment, but she rolls over and suffers through it, fakes it, all for me. Because at that moment, it's something that she completely didn't desire, right? And I kind of look at it as if, and this is, all jokes aside, I look at it as her standing by me while I'm standing by her. So, as difficult as it may seem, we should all feel that we would be better people and say, oh no, I don't want or need sex for however long it takes for you to recover. But we then live in reality where that's not true.
So as you can see, Maurice's need for sex outweighs his wife's health and the way she feels, and he says in his own words, she was admirable. He felt like she was admirable for putting his needs in front of hers, or basically paying him back for standing by her, as if they're not a married couple and that's what you do. The fact that this dude sat up here and said that told me literally that he probably has a sex addiction, number one. Number two, he probably has that, and Kimmie probably knows it, which is why within all her pain and with everything she was going through, she would turn around and turn over and please him just out of fear. Pure fear that he would leave her and go and sleep with somebody else. It has to be that, and I'm going to just say maybe even a little insecurity. I don't know. There has to be something in Kimmie's mind that puts everything that she needs aside to please a man in the most horrible, horrific time of her life. There has to be something. But nevertheless, that's what he had to say. So you know what? Everybody went to windmilling. Hell, even me, because I'm just, as a woman, identifying that this man ain't worth a dime. And I'm like, how could he put her needs or his needs before hers at a time where she could possibly not be here anymore? You know what I mean? Well, to no avail, it didn't make no sense, because guess what? Kimmie got on this doggone show and went to windmilling for her man. And it was just like, girl, we did all that windmilling. Our arms is tied for nothing. Let y'all hear some of this interview, and I'm going to jump in wherever I feel I need to jump in and come and tell y'all what I feel about it.
Give you the opportunity to respond to a headline. A sad case of a man. Love and Marriage Huntsville fans slam Maurice for demanding intimacy while Kimmie goes through chemotherapy. Kimmie, what is your response to the backlash that Maurice has been getting lately?
So here's the thing, like originally, I didn't even watch it. He told me he had an interview with Carlos, and usually I just kind of get the nuts and bolts of it. You know, he was like, well, we did this, he asked me about that, and I didn't do anything. And then when I finally saw stuff just kind of everywhere, I was like, oh my gosh, what did you say? I literally was like, what did you say? And so one of the comments somebody keeps screenshotting around is the fact that I said, let me go see the interview. And people were like, I don't believe she hasn't seen it. And I just got life, like we got stuff. So when I actually did see it, I told him, I said, no, disrespectful. Like the words that you chose were cruel to me. It wasn't protecting me. The irony of the conversation in itself was that if you actually watch the show, I'm the one who initiated the conversation in regards to the fact that the chemo has affected my libido. And I know that affects him and his sexual injuries. So he has never forced me to do one single thing. He has never made me. He has never implied he was going to leave me. So the headlines, in order to get likes and tags, I absolutely get it. But the words that he chose to use throughout that interview, I felt were a bad choice of words in regards to me, because it didn't protect me in the words that he chose to use to describe. Like, I think he said, bend over and take it. That's like ridiculous. Like, that's ridiculous. And I told him, I said, that was awful. The wording choice was awful.
So I want to jump in and say this. Number one, Kimmie is a very, very extremely intelligent woman. Let me just say that. I've always thought Kimmie was my favorite on this show because she's more grounded, she's more level-headed, and she's more matter of fact. Kimmie is a very, very intelligent woman. Kimmie answered this question with very much skill and preparedness and intelligence. And let me tell you why. Because Kimmie basically, instead of saying, hey, just leave it at the fact that it was disrespectful and I didn't appreciate it, she had to add all that nuance to it to make us feel like it wasn't his fault. Like, right? You know, so basically she goes into saying, oh, yeah, well, you know, he didn't make me or force me, you know, and I didn't know what was said in the interview. But then when I found out, I said it was disrespectful. But ultimately, he didn't make or force me. Kimmie, nobody in the World Wide Web is saying that he forced you to do it. We all know you volunteered to do it. The issue isn't him forcing you or not. The issue for us is he would even consider or not consider your feelings when doing so during a time where you were in need, during a time where you could have not been here anymore. That's what everybody was over there windmilling for. Nobody thought that he forced you to do anything. Trust me, Kimmie, we know the Scotsmen, and we know that their women are going to do whatever they tell them to do. That's what we know. So I just find it funny that she went on this whole diatribe about everything except it was disgusting. He didn't protect me. And I told him it was disrespectful and he needed to get out there and clean it up. She said a little bit of that, but the entire issue or the entire response, at least from now, is basically her windmilling for him saying, but he didn't force me. Let me let y'all listen to the rest of this interview because Claudia is going to get up and Claudia is actually going to be the MVP of this whole thing. And I'm going to come back with a little more commentary.
You know,
I want to jump in, say something real quick. I was horrified too with some of the language, and I spoke about having a situation where it was the reverse. I had a man that had some issues. I want to ask both of you, Kimmie, I want to ask you first, do you feel the pressure, like if I don't satisfy my man, even when I don't feel good, am I nervous? Do I feel a way about the future of my marriage? And Maurice, if you could take back what you said, would you rephrase it or do you stand on exactly what you said?
So for me, like I said, we filmed it and everything. For Kimmie, I never felt like he was going to leave me. That wasn't the case whatsoever. However, even before our chemo issue came up, we already had conversation about our sex life. We talked about our sex life before we got married. So this is like an honest statement. In Kimmie's world, I had made up in my head 7 days was the limit. Like, I would never make my husband go more than 7 days. I don't care if we're angry. I don't care what's going on. That was always Kimmie's rule in her head. And so in this case, we went about 2 weeks and I was like, ugh. So it was my choice because I know that that's fulfilling for both of us. It's fulfilling for both of us. Like at the end of the day, he's not the only one missing out. I'm missing out because I don't have the same climax. I don't have the same arousal. You know what I'm saying? So I never had that conversation based on the fact that I thought he was going to leave. I know I love my husband and that is a big part of our world. I don't physically hurt. It doesn't hurt me to have sex. It doesn't do that whatsoever. It was just the arousal of the moment and the climax that is very different for me. So I'm just not getting the same fulfillment out of the sexual activity that he was.
So basically, Claudia asked her, do you feel like if you didn't do it, he would leave? It's a very clear and concise question. She went down this whole rabbit hole about, we made this agreement when we were getting married and that's what we were supposed to do. And we did that because, that's what I made the agreement with my husband. But when I wasn't able to do so, it kind of made me feel a little cringe because we went 2 weeks. Girl, you are going through chemo. Again, Kimmie's purposely leaving herself out of it to windmill for this man. And again, that's her husband, as she should. But I just feel like don't windmill on us and don't play in our face. And this is why, another reason why I tell everybody out there who listens to my voice, stop windmilling for these celebrities, because these people wouldn't spit on you if you were on fire. When y'all be standing these celebrities and these reality TV people don't give a damn about you personally. They are using you, okay? But let's get into some more of the interview.
We got it. So let's get Maurice in here. Maurice, do you think it was selfish for you to force your wife to suffer through it while she was fighting for her life? Your words.
Your words. Now, those are my words. And I'm going to own the words that I say. However, you have to take everything into full context. I didn't have knowledge of her suffering. I didn't have knowledge of her rolling over and giving it to me when she didn't want to, right? Or didn't feel the need to. At the end of the day, this is the thing. She surprised the hell out of me on television, talking about, you know what? I'm not getting it. I'm faking it. All that stuff. Like, listen, it's on national TV. So I'm like, oh, really? So you're faking it. This whole time I'm thinking that you're doing it. And it puts everything into context when you watch the television show and then you actually see the interview. Because for me to find out that she's faking it, and then for me to analyze the situation and say, it's admirable for her to do this because, number one, most people that do things for you let you know that they're doing it for you. They don't let you find out later on, oh, wow, you were actually hurting or you were going through something and you were sharing that and you were doing it for me. So, of course, I would change my words and give better context in any type of interview. However, I still think that you don't think it was a little cringy to even want to have sex with her while she was going through that? And I ask that because typically if somebody's not feeling well, we don't make them cook, we don't make them wash the dishes, we may not make them take the kids to school, and all of those things are oftentimes considered a wife's duty. You didn't think it would be all right for her to forego that one duty while she was going through this? See, this is the thing. We weren't doing on the days she wasn't feeling good. Unless I didn't know that either. Interesting.
So can you ask you earlier, would you rephrase anything that you said? Because it seemed your wife just revealed that it was your words, right? And how you said things, bend over and take it. I've done this many times. You said stuff and it's like, I wish I would have said it like this. Would you rephrase anything? Would you do over, or are you like, no, I meant it exactly?
Definitely. Anytime my wife feels like she's not protected by whatever I do, that's my job. Mm-hmm. That's why God gave her to me, is to make sure that I have a covering and protection over her at all times. And if she feels like my words are crass, then I'll change my words. I'm not one of those people that say, man, I said what I said. Now, mind you, that's a great quote and everything else that goes around social media. I said what I said. I don't even know where that came from. But
Candy.
I'm not one of those people. It came from
Candy on the Housewives of Atlanta. She said it on one of the original videos.
But I'm not one of them. I said what I said. I said what I said. Hold on. Let me say it better the next time.
Did you guys hear that long diatribe of all for him to get back to I said what I said? This is what I'm saying to y'all. He does not care to put her feelings above his. Because if he was an actual loving and caring husband who's supporting his wife going through one of the worst things she'll ever go through in life, I believe, in my opinion, sex will be the very last thing on his mind. If anything, he'd be making sure she's comfortable. He'd be making sure she doesn't need anything. Hell, he would probably even be surprised if she initiated it and talked to her. Hey, babe, are you sure this is what you want to do? See, that's what a loving husband does, right? But when you are a POS, a piece of shit, right? You don't care. And this is the worst part. I can't even be mad at him because Kimmie, is a willing participant in her own victimhood, period. She knows what she's married and she knows what she's got. But I just like how Claudia keeps asking him, hey, if you could do it over, would you do it over? Would you say something different? Because bend over and take it was just not the best choice of words. It was disrespectful. He said all of that to say he said what he said. Y'all let that sink in. He said all of that to say he said what he said. And this is why I always preach to women to never put a man before you. The only people you need to put before you, are your kids. Never a man. But it gets worse. I got one more clip to play for y'all of him basically standing on his square saying he said what he said. And we gonna come back.
And I gotta say this as the woman here, and I'm sorry, Al, I know you haven't had a chance to say anything. I still haven't heard him rephrase it in a kinder way right here on the show. I've been trying to give you the opportunity because I feel like your wife is protecting you more than you're protecting her. I feel like she's protecting your rep, and I'm like, Kimmie, I should have said it like this. I'm sorry. And it's like, I feel so bad for her. I can't imagine going through what she's going through. You saying that, and then me asking you twice if you would rephrase it, and you said, yeah, but you really haven't. It seems like it's more about you than her still. In my opinion, this is my opinion, and you can tell me shut the fuck up too. This is my opinion, you know?
No, I understand where you're coming from. And what I said is you got to get it in the context. I'm not going to rephrase. You said, what if I rephrase it? Yes, I would rephrase it. But at the end of the day, we're talking about this because I've already said something, right? There's no taking it back. There's no ringing that bell. That bell's rung. That's why we're here. At the end of in the future, what I will do is I'll make sure that my wife feels protected. I don't feel any different about the situation. At the end of the day, my wife did something that most people won't do. Simply, she put her personal feelings aside. I never wanted her to do anything that was uncomfortable. I wanted her to stop working. I wanted her to put everything to the side and let's get better. So when she's doing things to find a sense of normalcy in life, guess what? I don't know, because I'm not inside of her, what makes her feel good, what doesn't make her feel good, when she's feeling good, when she's not. So at the end of the day, you know what?
So as you can see, he tripled down on it. He said, I already said it, and I'm not going to change it, basically. He said a whole bunch of nothing to say he said what he said for the third time. And this is the problem. And it's not my problem, it's hers, and hers to deal with alone. Maurice is emotionally absent. He's so dumb. And I don't mean dumb in books, because just because you go to college, I have 2 degrees, that doesn't make you smart. Trust me, it just means you can pass the test. Let's talk about it. But he's so silly and so stupid, he doesn't even realize, number one, when they're giving him an alley-oop. And then number 2, he doesn't understand what emotional protection is, spiritual protection is. There's more than one type of protection than physical. And see, men like him think like that. They feel like as long as they're providing, as long as they're physically there, that's all they need. They don't need to do anything else. And that creates emotionally absent people from emotionally absent people. And you can tell by the look on Kimmie's face, she is just like defeated. And I can't even feel bad for her because she's a willing participant in her own victimhood. That's what I'm trying to say. Kimmie knows exactly what is going on. She knows the steps she needs to take to fix this, but she won't because she don't want to upset her husband. It's funny and it's crazy that us as women, even Claudia, and I normally don't agree with Claudia, but on this, she's 100% right. us as women can empathize, right, with Kimmie, because we're women and we understand how rapid breast cancer is in our community. But even other men can sympathize with a woman or a person being ill to the point where they have to suffer through chemo and radiation, and understand that, hey, it's going to be some things that they're not going to be able to do. Or it's going to be some things that I can help them with because they're going through this horrible, difficult time in their lives, right? An average, regular, random could tell you that, right? But not somebody like Maurice. Because a person like Maurice feels like he doesn't owe anybody anything, not even his wife. If anything, I believe behind those closed doors, it's a whole lot of other stuff going on that we just ain't seeing. And the reason I'm going to say that, because it's written all over Kimmie's face every single time he responds. Every single time he says something in response to any of the questions, Kimmie, being an intelligent woman, knows that he just doesn't care. Because that's what it boils down to. If you could look at her face, she just knows that he just does not care. And for the sake of being married, she's just going to suffer through it. For the sake of saying I have a husband, for the sake of not being alone probably, and I'm just guesstimating because I'm a woman and I know how we are and how we think and how we behave because I've done it myself. But for the sake of being with some man, the sake of being married, the sake of having the status of marriage, the sake of not being by yourself and loving on you before you love on somebody else, you're just going to suffer through it. And ladies, this is why I tell you it is very important for you to love on you before you have somebody else love on you. Because if Kimmie was loving on her, Kimmie would not allow that behavior. Kimmie would not even allow him to get up here and disrespect her like that. But as we can see, that's not the case here. Now, I want to go back and there's this one last piece of this video that I really want you guys to see. And it's a portion where Kimmie looks physically disturbed. And I want to say it was Funky or Claudia. One of them called her out on it and was like, Kimmie, you look very disturbed. Would you like to talk or would you like to say something? And Kimmie's basically going to say what she should have been saying from the beginning. But she likes to like paint it in a little cute little bow. I'm going to let y'all hear this right quick and I'm going to come back for my final commentary.
You know, I don't want to belabor a point, but I just can't help but notice, Kimmie, you look very uncomfortable right now.
Me?
Yeah, are you?
No, see, I'm not uncomfortable. What's funny, I guess, to me is that listening to the questions, and sometimes I think that he doesn't always answer the question at hand. And so I'm not uncomfortable at all. But sometimes in my head, I'm like, that's kind of not what she said. Or like, she kind of hit you the ball 2 times and you kind of let it go 2 times. So I'm not uncomfortable, but in my head, I'm just trying not to interrupt him or guide his answer in another direction. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just trying to listen to, his response.
I understand what you're saying, Kimmie, woman to woman. I think your husband loves you. It's obvious you love him. There's clearly a disconnect in the communication as a third party looking in. And I'm no expert because I'm not married, you guys are. But I've been in relationships that are similar to this. And my advice would be, Maurice, you don't have to be inside of her to know how she thinks she's your wife. You see her every day. You know when she's sad. You know when something hurts her feelings. And Kimmie, I think you really protect him because there's a public light on you, and I get it. Because you don't want the public coming for your man. You love him. But at the end of the day, you can't fully heal from anything when you're emotionally fucked up. And Maurice, your job is to make sure your wife feels good and, bend over and take it. This will be the perfect opportunity to rephrase it. You don't have to. I've been pushing it. You don't have to. But it would have been nice to hear some kind words to rephrase that. Because if I heard a man say that about me, I'd be fucking horrified. Never met. And she has to already go through so much. And you said it. Your wife is willing to go. I've been with a fine-ass man that are beautiful and everything is perfect in our relationship. Not perfect, but things are good in our relationship. But I'm turned off from something small. I couldn't imagine going through chemo and what that feels like. And then having the magnifying glass of a reality show, talking shit. Just be mindful as a couple because it will tear you apart. Been there, done that. I'm not telling you this from someone that hasn't. And I really hope y'all get through this because there is love, obviously. But the communication is it's like you guys are going like this, you know? And I don't know if y'all, it sounds like talking at each other or not.
So Maurice and Kimmie, we love y'all so much. And
you know what's so unfortunate about all of this? You can see on Kimmie's face, she is visibly like shaken, right? She really probably is questioning everything. But even in her questioning everything, she's still going to defend him. She's not even defending herself. We're defending Kimmie, and Kimmie's defending her husband. Like, y'all let that, like, make that make sense. And I'm not judging her for doing so. I'm just trying to point out something that as Black women, we have been doing since the beginning of time, and it has gotten us nowhere. Let me tell you something. As someone who's been married and divorced, just because you married don't mean he gonna always be there. Let me just say that. It don't mean I'ma always be there. Marriage is indefinite. It's not a thing that lasts forever like they tell us in the fairy tales. It just doesn't. Very few people get to that point where they grow old with their partner. This is a fact. This is not fiction. This is a fact. Very few people in America get to grow old with their partners. When you're in it, everybody's goal is forever. I get that. But ultimately, when you're out of it, if you get a chance to go and live your life all the way through with this man, kudos to you. But in the event that you don't, you are going to look back at the very worst time in your life, and you're going to see how ignorant and how selfless you were, but to a point, it was a selflessness to your own detriment. Even in her responses, it's, oh, well, Claudia is literally pouring her heart out to Kimmie, and Kimmie still windmilling for her man. That is insanity at its best. Do you hear me? I've always been saying this from the very beginning. I'm talking about season 1. You can go back and look at my old videos. Maurice is just as bad, if not worse, than Marceau. They are both misogynistic. They are both selfish. They are both under this false narrative that in order to be a man, you just have to provide for your family. And I get it because they didn't grow up with their fathers in the home. So I get it. And that's not a dig. It's just the truth. I get that. But instead of trying to figure out other ways and see, hey, this doesn't look good, or maybe I should tweak this or tweak that, they're so set in their ways to where they would just sit there and continue to do what they do, regardless of how their spouses feel. Y'all dragged Tisha and said Tisha was this, that, and the third child. But at the end of the day, looked like Kimmie getting it more emotionally than anything. And I'm pretty sure Tisha's getting it as well. But Kimmie is like literally like suffering through it. And you look at her face, you can tell. You can literally tell that she is suffering through his answers. You can tell she's suffering through that marriage. You can tell she's suffering every single day outside of the chemo and radiation. But that's her husband. And she's probably been taught and normalized to put him first before her. I'll just say this, and I'm going to leave y'all because I ain't trying to be here all day. At the end of the day, we only get one life. Very few people get to have a scare like that and come out healthy on the other end with another chance. Kimmie, my only advice would be to you is, after having this interview, I really hope you sat down and had a talk with your husband, because this was not only disgusting, it was cringy. And again, I started this video by saying we can't feel worse or sorry for you more than you feel for yourself. And that's just the bottom line. You have to want better for you because we can't do it for you. Y'all drop down in the comments and let me know what y'all think. Kimmie, I really hope everything gets better for you. I swear I do. Because I know the signs and the looks of a suffering woman when I see it. It's almost as if she's getting physically abused. You know what I mean? I know the signs because I was once that woman. That's what's insane to me. But I truly, truly hope that Kimmie gets the help that she deserves. I truly hope that if she's going to stick in this marriage, that they actually come to some sort of normalcy where he's actually putting her feelings before his. I don't think that will happen because you can't teach an old dog new tricks. But I mean, I'm just hoping for the best for Kimmie. I don't want to see him break up or get divorced, but I really want the best for Kimmie. Anyway, y'all drop down in the comments and let me know what y'all think. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, follow me on TikTok. And ladies, always put yourself first. You can love a man as hard as you want to, but always remember to put you first. If it ain't your kids, it's you. I'll see y'all hoes later. Bye.
Mr. Carroll, how you give the voodoo doll time to talk? I don't get no fucking time to talk.
Who the voodoo doll is?
The nigga you just had up here.